Hello and welcome back, rugby fans. This is the Final Whistle Rugby podcast, and I'm your host, Dewi Thomas. Yes, that's right, the most Welsh-sounding name you'll ever hear on a podcast. But if you were expecting a thick Valleys accent, you're going to be disappointed. You're stuck with me and my voice, and trust me, by the end of this season, you'll be used to it. Or at least I hope so. Now, before we dive in, let me remind you, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your rugby-loving mates. Hit that alert button too, because you don't want to miss a single episode. Podcasts are brilliant because you can listen anywhere, on the train, in the car, when you're commuting, in the gym, or even when you just want to hide in the kitchen with your headphones in and pretend you can't hear your partner shouting at you to take the bins out. That's the joy of podcasts. They fit your life perfectly. All right then, let's get into it, because the excitement levels are already rising. The 2025-26 United Rugby Championship is about to kick off, and it all starts on Friday, the 26th of September. Week 1 of 18. This is it. The build-up, the anticipation, the thrill of a brand new season. Who's going to come out firing, who's going to struggle early, and which games will have us glued to our screens. Let's set the scene first. Leinster are the reigning champions. They absolutely dominated last season, finishing it off in style with a massive 32-7 win over the Bulls at Croke Park. That was one of those finals where Leinster reminded everyone that they're not just strong, they're on another level when they click. But the Bulls, who have been so close so many times, will be desperate to put things right this year. And that's what makes this opening round so spicy, because who are Leinster playing in their very first game of the season? None other than the Stormers away in Cape Town. That's right. Friday evening local time 18:00, Stormers versus Leinster. What a way to open the competition. The defending champions heading to South Africa, to one of the toughest places to win. And remember, it was only a couple of years ago when Leinster went down to Cape Town and were turned over. The Stormers are no pushovers. Their fans will pack the stadium, and there's always that electric energy under the lights. For me, this is the match of the round. Yes, there are other huge games, but this one has everything. Leinster, the champions, fresh from adding Rico Ione to their already stacked squad. Imagine that, Rico Ione in a Leinster jersey, as if they didn't have enough talent already. And on the other side, the Stormers, with that blend of raw South African power and attacking flair. This has drama written all over it. But wait, that's not the only match on Friday. We've got a doubleheader to enjoy because at 20:05, two big games kick off almost simultaneously. In Scotland, the Glasgow Warriors host the Hollywood Bits Sharks. Now, Glasgow had a really strong run last season, and there's a real feeling in Scotland that they can go deep again this year. Add to that the fact that Sione Tuipulotu is back fit, plus his younger brother Tavi Tuipulotu has joined the squad. Suddenly, they look like a side with both depth and firepower. And then you look at the Sharks. Well, they've just added Edwill van der Merwe, the winger who switched from the Lions. He's rapid, he's hungry, and he'll want to make an impression straight away. These inter-hemisphere games, South Africa versus Scotland, are some of the best contests in the URC. Physical, tactical, and often unpredictable. This is one to watch for sure. At the same time, over in Belfast, Ulster are welcoming the Dragons. Now, let's be honest, Ulster will come into this one as favourites. Their squad is stronger, their home record is solid, and the Dragons have struggled in recent years. And here's the big but, remember last season when everyone wrote off the Dragons in week 1 and they came out with one of their best performances? They didn't win, but they rattled a few cages. Ulster can't afford to take them lightly. This could be a banana skin if they're not sharp. That's Friday sorted then. 3 big matches, plenty of storylines already. But Saturday is just as tasty. It all starts with the Bulls against the Ospreys at 13:00. The Bulls, as I said earlier, are desperate. They've reached finals, they've been close, but they haven't lifted that trophy. This year they've signed Handré Pollard, Paul de Wet and Nicolaas Jans van Rensburg. That's serious intent. And for Ospreys travelling to Pretoria, it's about making a statement. Win there or even compete strongly, and it sets their season up beautifully. After that, at 15:05, we've got Zebba Palmer versus Edinburgh. Now, on paper, you'd say Edinburgh should take this, but don't forget, last season Benetton made Italian rugby proud by qualifying for the Champions Cup knockouts. Italian rugby is on the rise. Zebba want to be part of that story. They're not going to roll over at home. For Edinburgh, though, this is about getting momentum early. Last season, they were up and down, but this year they'll want consistency. Then at 17:30, we've got a cracker, Scarlets versus Munster, a proper clash of traditions, red versus red, Welsh grit against Irish muscle. Munster haven't been in a final since 2023, and they'll want to lay down a marker here. The Scarlets, meanwhile, will be desperate to show that Welsh rugby still has teeth in this competition. Their fans will be buzzing, and matches at Park why Scarlets always have that edge. I cannot wait for this one. And finally, to wrap up the opening weekend, at 19:45, it's Connacht versus Benetton and Cardiff Rugby versus the Lions. Two great fixtures to finish round one. Connacht at home are always tricky. Benetton, as I said, are on the rise, and this could be one of those games that tells us whether last season was a one-off or if they're genuinely building something special. Meanwhile, Cardiff hosting the Lions is another fascinating one. Cardiff have been through ups and downs, but their home support is loyal and passionate. The Lions, on the other hand, are unpredictable. One week they look world-class, the next they can struggle. Under the lights in Cardiff, this could be dramatic. And that's just part one of our build-up, folks. We've got so much more to cover, what these fixtures mean in the bigger picture, which players you should be watching, and which storylines from last season might repeat themselves this year. But before we move on, a quick reminder, make sure you subscribe, like, and turn on alerts so you don't miss our Sunday Roundup show where we'll break down all of these games once they've been played. You don't want to miss that.
We hope you are enjoying our podcast. If you'd like to help us continue to provide you quality content, we would welcome your generosity. In the comments section, we have a link to make a donation. Every £1 we receive will help us bring you dynamic and reliable sporting content. Thank you in advance for making the effort for us. £1 in isolation is very little, but every pound added together adds up to a substantial contribution to us. So don't be shy, click the link and donate £1 today. Thank you for your support. Now back to the podcast.
All right, rugby fans, welcome back to the build-up. We've gone through the fixtures for round one, and honestly, if that doesn't get you buzzing, I don't know what will. But here's the thing, it's not just about the fixtures. It's about the players, the rivalries, the stories. That's what makes this tournament so addictive. So let's shine the spotlight on some of the names, some of the narratives that will make this opening weekend unmissable. First up, we've got to talk about Leinster. They're the defending champions, they're the benchmark, and they've just gone and added Rico Ione. Can you believe that? One of the most explosive centres in the game, an all-black star rocking up in Dublin. Now, he won't actually be featuring in the early rounds because his arrival is timed for the Champions Cup campaign, but just the thought of him pulling on that blue jersey later in the season adds to the buzz. But even without him, Leinster's squad is stacked. You've got Tadhg Furlong, arguably the best tight head prop in world rugby, Jamison Gibson-Park, who controls the tempo like few others, Josh Van Der Flyer, the tireless flanker who was World Rugby Player of the Year not that long ago, and then Dan Sheehan, who is a hooker but scores tries like a winger. It's ridiculous. And they're heading into Cape Town to face a Stormers side who will have nothing to lose and everything to prove. That's why I think this opener could be one of the games of the season. Let's jump to the Bulls, because they're another team with a big spotlight. They've been to 3 finals in the last 4 years. 3, and they've lost them all, twice to Leinster, once to the Stormers. You can imagine how much that stings. That's why they've gone heavy in the recruitment market. Bringing back Handré Pollard, the World Cup-winning fly-half, is massive. Add in Paul de Wet to sharpen their attack, and Nicolaas Jans van Rensburg to strengthen their pack, and suddenly you've got a Bulls team that looks ready to go one better. Their opener against the Ospreys at 13:00 on Saturday is a chance to put down a marker. And speaking of the Ospreys, don't sleep on them. They've had their struggles, yes, but they're one of those teams that can spring surprises. Remember last season when they travelled and no one gave them a chance, but they came away with a win? That's what makes them dangerous. They don't always read the script. If they can frustrate the Bulls early, who knows? Over in Scotland, the Glasgow Warriors are one of my dark horses this season. They looked seriously competitive in 2024, and now with Sione Tuipulatu back in form and fit after his Lions tour, they've got leadership and creativity. Adding his younger brother Tavi Tuipulatu, a hooker with U20 World Cup experience, is a clever move too. It's about building depth, and that's what can carry you through a long season. Facing the Sharks at home in round one will be a real test, but I actually think Glasgow could push for a semi-final spot this year. Now the Sharks are fascinating. They've added Edwill van der Merwe, a winger who is rapid and has something to prove. He's been on the edge of the Springboks squad, and this season could be his chance to really force his way in. Sometimes, those players are the most dangerous, the ones who feel they've got a point to prove. If he hits the ground running, watch out. Let's not forget the Italians. Benetton made history last season by qualifying for the Champions Cup knockouts for the very first time. That's a massive achievement, and it shows how far Italian rugby has come. And it also adds pressure, because now Zebra want to step up too. For years, Zebra have been the whipping boys, but I sense a bit of belief growing there. Their home clash against Edinburgh will be a chance to show that they're not just there to make up the numbers. If they can pull off a shock, the whole league will take notice. Back in Wales, I'm keeping an eye on Scarlets versus Munster. This is one of those fixtures that just screams intensity. Munster haven't been in a final since 2023, and their fans are desperate for success again. But Scarlets at home are no joke. Their crowd is passionate, their team always lifts for the big occasion, and if they can rattle Munster early, this could be a thriller. Last season, we saw how Welsh derbies and clashes with Irish provinces brought out the best in teams, and I expect nothing less here. And then you've got Connacht versus Benetton. Connacht are tricky customers at home. The sports ground is a unique place to play, windy, often rainy, and the crowd right on top of you. Visiting teams hate it. Benetton will need to be disciplined, but if they can nick a win there, it would be a statement that they're not just a one-season wonder. Finally, Cardiff versus the Lions. I love this fixture to close out the weekend. Cardiff are rebuilding, trying to rediscover their edge, and the Lions are the most unpredictable team in the competition. They can look like world beaters one week and completely off the pace the next. That's what makes them dangerous. Under the lights in Cardiff, with that atmosphere, this could be one of those games where momentum swings back and forth. It could go either way, and those are the best kind of games. Now let's pull back a bit and think about the bigger picture. This season marks the 25th anniversary of the competition, going all the way back to the old Celtic League. That's a huge milestone. And to celebrate, we've got all 151 fixtures being shown live, thanks to Premier Sports. And in Wales, the tradition continues with S4C broadcasting games in Welsh, just as they've done since day one. That's special, and it's a reminder that this tournament is not just about rugby, it's about culture, identity, and tradition. And speaking of tradition, we've got themed rounds coming later in the season: Kids Round, Origin Round, and Unity Round. Those will be announced in more detail soon, but they always add something unique to the calendar. Plus, the big festive derbies in rounds 7, 8, and 9. If you're a fan of rivalries, that's the part of the season you'll love. But for now, all eyes are on week 1. And remember, folks, we'll be doing a full Sunday breakdown show once these games have been played. We'll go match by match, highlight the best tries, the biggest hits, the controversies, because you know there will be some, and talk about what it all means for the rest of the season. So don't forget to subscribe and turn on alerts so you don't miss it.
We hope you are enjoying our podcast. If you'd like to help us continue to provide you quality content, we would welcome your generosity. In the comments section, we have a link to make a donation. Every £1 we receive will help us bring you dynamic and reliable sporting content. Thank you in advance for making the effort for us. £1 in isolation is very little, but every pound added together adds up to a substantial contribution to us. So don't be shy, click the link and donate £1 today. Thank you for your support. Now back to the podcast.
All right, folks, we've previewed the fixtures, we've talked players to watch, we've looked at the storylines carrying over from last season, so now it's time for what every fan really wants: predictions, hype, and just a little bit of banter. So let's start with the big one: Stormers versus Leinster on Friday night. The Stormers have pride, home advantage, and a fanbase that can turn Newlands or Cape Town Stadium into a cauldron. But honestly, Leinster are a machine. Even in round 1, before Iron arrives, they've got the depth to grind you down. I think Leinster take this, but it'll be close, maybe a late score decides it. Over in Glasgow, I've got the Warriors edging the Sharks. Glasgow at home have momentum, and I think Sione Tuipulatu will light it up. But this is one of those fixtures that could easily flip if Van Daya Merwe gets into space. Sharks fans, you know what I mean. If he gets ball in hand, good luck stopping him. Then it's Ulster versus Dragons. Ulster should win comfortably, right? But here, where the URC loves to surprise us, Dragons fans will be hopping for a repeat of last season when they showed flashes of real improvement. If Ulster underestimate them, this one could get nervy. But for me, Ulster by 10. Bulls versus Ospreys, now this is tasty. The Bulls at Loftus, with Pollard pulling the strings, that's a tough ask for any side. Ospreys will fight, but I just think the Bulls have too much power. And honestly, they need to make a statement after so many near misses. Bulls by 15. Zebra versus Edinburgh, this is the kind of game that might fly under the radar, but it's huge for Zebra. If they can sneak a win here, suddenly people take them seriously. Edinburgh, though, have a knack for shutting these games down. I'll say Edinburgh to edge it, but not by much. Scarlets versus Munster, now we're talking fireworks. Two teams who love to run it, two sets of fans who bring the noise. I can see this being the game of the round. My heart says Scarlets to nick it late, but my head says Munster by a score. Either way, get the popcorn ready. Connaught versus Benetton, tricky, very tricky. I love Benetton's rise, but the sports ground is a graveyard for visiting sides. Connaught by a few, unless the Italians pull something wild out of the hat. And finally, Cardiff versus Lions. Saturday night, under the lights, two unpredictable teams. Honestly, this could be 12-9 or 42-41. That's the Lions for you. I'll go with Cardiff just because I think the crowd lifts them. But don't put money on it, because this is the ultimate coin toss. Now a bit of humor before we wrap. Because look, rugby fans love a laugh almost as much as they love a rolling maul. Here's one for you. They say Leinster's game plan is like a fine wine, complex, layered, and best appreciated by experts. Meanwhile, the Bulls' pack is more like a pint of Guinness, dark, heavy, and it'll flatten you if you're not careful. All right, enough of that, let's get serious again. This season is wide open. Leinster are favourites, sure, but the Bulls are desperate. Munster and Glasgow will be in the mix. Benetton want to prove last year wasn't a fluke. And the Welsh regions, they've been written off before, but they love a scrap, and one or two shocks from them could flip the whole table. And don't forget, we've got the festive derbies to come later in the year, plus the race to the 8 kicking in around round 13. That's when the tension really ramps up, because every point counts for the playoffs, for Champions Cup qualification, for bragging rights. So here's the call to action. Stick with us all season. We'll break down the action every Sunday, bring you the biggest talking points, and maybe the odd bad joke too. Hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and join the conversation, because rugby isn't just a game, it's a community. Roll on Friday, 26th of September. The URC is back, and I cannot wait.